Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film The Offering. Now I say 2022, but on Hulu it says 2023, and that's when it came to streaming. I think that was its big release. So, it's a newer film. This is a no spoiler review. Like I said, I watched it on Hulu, so if you want to check this out, go ahead and check it out there. And I will say this, I do think this movie is very much worth watching. I think it's definitely interesting. It's not the best film I've seen this year. It wouldn't even make like my top 10 or probably, well, maybe my top 20. I don't know. I'd have to, write all that stuff down. But it is worth watching. It is interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff here. There's some things I have issues with, but I'll get into those. This is directed by Oliver Park, who also did A Night of Horror, Nightmare Radio. Not familiar with that one. Written by Hank Hoffman and Jonathan Younger. And it's based on Jewish folklore of Abyzou. I'm going to spell it just in case I said that wrong. Abyzou. Now, I'm a fan of horror films that draw from folklore of other cultures. Especially because it's a lot of the time it's stuff I know either nothing about or I know very little about. So it's kind of like new horror to me in that sense. It's like new and exciting, and it leaves a lot more opportunity for things that I wouldn't necessarily see coming or something I can learn more about. So, but what is this film about? Quick synopsis. It's about a Jewish family where the son was you get the idea he was kind of estranged from the family, but he shows back up. He's got a ulterior motive here, but he's reconnecting with his father, and it's only his father at this point when he's going back because his mother's not there anymore. And there are some demonic happenings, basically, and it's a lot of great visuals, in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of great atmosphere created in this film, but I'll kind of talk about that more. But the story, in my opinion, is not the best. It's a good premise. I think how they actually fleshed out the story and constructed the story does not work the best, unfortunately. And I saw some people kind of saying, because I checked into them on Letterboxd, and I saw a review on there of someone just saying that, they thought the story was very thin. And I think that's a pretty accurate idea of what's going on with this film. The story is pretty thin, but there is a lot of good stuff there regardless. So let's get into my notes. Opening text tells you exactly what's at play here, so it's no secret that this is about this demon that's happening in the film. It's literally laid out in text on the screen immediately. Now, would it maybe have been a little more interesting if they didn't do that? Yeah, probably, because it would have had a little more of a surprise element once you get to the actual demonic stuff, because they really could have played it where it's like, is this actually going on, or is this kind of like grief popping up? Because the family's also dealing with grief. And to a degree, the film does end up being about like loss and grief to some degree, but like I said, the story's not like greatly laid out. It definitely starts in an interesting way, really does a good job of hooking you in with its initial pre-title card scene. Impactful, attention-grabbing, got some good gore to it. Yeah, it really does set the stage and sets the hopes pretty high, or at least it did for me personally. It definitely... I literally just read that. It's one of those days. My apologies. It has a real dark, creepy atmosphere that maintains throughout. That's one of the things I said that was a big plus for this film. I think they did an excellent job setting a really nice, dark, creepy atmosphere. Now, part of that's done with camera work, part of that's done with lighting, and part of that is done with the score itself. And then obviously the acting ends up coming into play on that as well. But I think they put enough things together and really in a harmonious manner to get a really awesome atmosphere that you really kind of do feel like anything could happen at any time, and you could get scared. There could be a jump scare coming out of nowhere. There could be, something really messed up happening. Like, you truly don't really know where things are going to go, and that dark, creepy atmosphere just keeps you in the mood of just being more afraid, honestly. And I really like how they created that and maintained it. There is some pretty nice camera work in this. They have a lot of interesting camera angles, but also a lot of interesting camera movements. Nothing, typically nothing like too aggressive. It's more kind of like smooth, easy camera movements that keep the scenes more engaging from a visual standpoint. And I'm a big fan of that. I love that. You know, my favorite director is Mario Bava, who did a lot of camera movement in his films. And I'm not going to say this reminds me of that, but, you know, nice camera movement in it. It looks great. That's one of the biggest strengths of this film is I think it's directed quite well. And from a cinematography standpoint, it looks really good. Unfortunately, there is some CGI in it that a little bit wonky here and there, but for the most part, actually pretty decent from a CGI standpoint. One of the good things that they do is they don't really put the CGI in lighting, in much lighting. It's more in like darker settings, which makes it easier to kind of like hide the rougher edges. So yeah, there's that. There are some good jump scares in this. I was saying that the atmosphere makes you feel like there can be some jump scares that will come up. There are jump scares that come up, and I think for the most part they did a pretty good job with the jump scares. I'm usually don't go for most, but I think they got me like 2 times in this, so I think that is a big strength with it. And I think that, like I was saying before, you know, that atmosphere really does put you in a more vulnerable position for when those jump scares actually do happen. Because I've seen plenty of movies where they have these attempted jump scares, but like the mood just wasn't right to actually catch me. So this one does a good job with that. They do a nice job building tension when it is needed, and I think the score in particular really helps with this. It's a very interestingly composed score, and it's a little more minimalistic in the sound that it's making. They do go a little bit hard on the score from time to time, but it never gets to a point where I feel like it's too overbearing. It's kind of like hits this nice medium sweet spot for me personally. And again, you know, I feel like the score really adds a lot to how they're able to achieve this tension building in those certain scenes. The younger main characters, I think, do have a hard time hanging with the rest of the cast, unfortunately. And their characters actually are not very well written, so that also does a big disservice to the actual actors. It's one of those things where they're kind of 2 larger, older actors, and then 2 main younger actors. And the older actors are really good, and I'm actually just going to call them out by name right now. The performances of Paul Kaye and Alan Cordiner, those 2 really good in this. Whenever they're on screen, I was magnetized. I love their performances. I thought they did a phenomenal job. I thought their characters were well written. The dialogue for them was well written. The problem with the other 2 younger characters is their acting wasn't at the same level. So when they're in scenes together, it's just not matching. And it feels just off. The other big thing was, like I said, they're not written that well. Those characters really, you can't really understand them that much. They kind of jump into the characters. They don't give them a lot of backstory. You're just kind of supposed to be like, oh yeah, I get the gist of what's going on here and make assumptions about these people. And it's just, it doesn't really work. So between the acting, I wouldn't say it wasn't bad acting. It just doesn't match what those other 2 who did phenomenal jobs were putting out there. That plus how the characters are written, it just really causes a lot of problems for me with the flow of the film. The ending is okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I did, you know, land somewhere in between. There's some aspects of it I did like. There's some aspects of it I didn't really like. It felt a little bit overdone as far as what the ending was. I was looking for it to go a little bit more unique maybe, but you know, if you see enough films, at some point everything's going to seem like you've seen it before for the most part. So maybe that's what's at play. But one of the big things is there's a morgue aspect to the film because the father in the film runs a morgue for the Jewish community, and it does start to feel at times like the autopsy of Jane Doe. Like that's the kind of like atmosphere they're trying to go for, and some of the specific scenes they were trying to pull some stuff from that. So I don't know if that's actually true or not, that it was an inspiration, but it kind of seemed like it was. It's not super strong. Like they don't try to go fully in that direction, but there's enough echoes of it that you're just kind of like, this seems pretty close to Autopsy of Jane Doe. But that's not a bad thing because it's a very awesome film to emulate. It's a very good one. So anyway, out of 5 stars with half stars in play, when I was initially watching it in the beginning, I was really leaning towards giving it 3.5 stars, but the story just never got fleshed out enough, it wasn't interesting enough, and the other issues that I was talking about, I got to go 3 stars. But I was close to 3.5. So 3 stars on The Offering. Again, I do think it's worth checking out, so people check it out. If you have, though, go ahead and put it in the comments what you thought of the film, if you liked it, hated it, in between, whatever. Give me like a sentence or two, and we can talk about it. But give me a thumbs up on this video if you don't mind. That really does help me with the YouTube algorithm. Also, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate that. That is the best way to repay me for all this free content I'm putting out. And you can also hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting out new videos. But regardless, thank you so much for checking this out. And until next time, keep it brutal.